His laughter still burns in my ears. Graduation dinner's supposed to be a celebration. My cap and gown still folded in the backseat of the car, my future hanging like a fragile thread. Instead of congratulations, I got a joke wrapped like a knife. Old enough to pay, rent, or get out. The table erupted in laughter. Even my mother hid her smile behind a glass of wine. My siblings looked at me the way wolves look at a wounded deer, waiting to see if I'd stumble. I didn't stumble. I chewed my food, I nodded, and I said nothing. Inside, I carved their words into stone. It wasn't the first time. I was 12 when they first turned the house bills into my burden. They dressed it as teaching responsibility. When Dad's hours got cut, when Mom's credit card maxed out, who bailed them out? Me. Babysitting, working after school, college, scholarships, every check I ever earned went to keeping the lights on. I told myself it was family, that they needed me, that one day they'd see me, not as their crutch, but their daughter. But last night at that dinner table, I finally understood I was never their child. I was their wallet. I spent the night packing in silence. They thought it was another one of my shifts, another night of me keeping things afloat. They didn't notice me removing my documents from the drawer or the bank statements I had carefully hidden under textbooks. They didn't notice that the old sedan parked outside wasn't just transportation. It was the bridge to the life I had built behind their backs. They had no idea that for years, while they drained me, I had been funneling away scholarships, side hustles, and internship stipends, quietly, patiently. Every dollar they didn't track became a brick in my escape. And 3 months before graduation, I signed the papers they would never believe I could sign. My first house, mine alone, paid in full. The next morning, Dad was sitting in the living room, scrolling his phone, bare-chested, beer gut spilling. Mom was already asking if I'd make the grocery run, as if last night had never happened. I stood in the doorway with my suitcase. "Where are you going?" Mom frowned. "Out," I said simply. Dad chuckled, finally decided to grow up. I met his eyes, calm, cold, yes. And since I'm grown, I won't be covering the bills anymore. Not the electric, not the mortgage, not the car insurance, none of it. The silence that followed was sharp, enough to slice air. At first, Dad laughed again. "You think we need your pocket change?" But then his face twitched. A muscle jumped in his jaw because he knew. He knew the water bill hadn't been paid in his name in years. The internet was on my account. Half the mortgage drafts had come from my checks. The car they drove, I was the one who covered the insurance. The color drained from his face. Mom clutched the armrest. You can't just stop," she whispered. "I can," I said, "and I am." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I let silence choke them the way their laughter had choked me the night before. I walked out, loaded the last suitcase into my trunk, and drove to the house that bore only my name, 9 streets away, white siding, a quiet porch, keys that jingled like freedom in my pocket. As I opened the door, I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I breathed. For the first time in years, the air was mine. But revenge isn't a house, it's timing. So I waited until the bills piled, waited until their calls shifted from angry to desperate. Dad's voicemail grew slurred, Mom's text grew panicked. "Where are you? The bank is threatening foreclosure, the power's been cut." Still, I said nothing until the night I invited them over. They arrived in the dark, headlights sweeping across my driveway. My porch light was on, casting gold against the windows. When Mom stepped inside, her face froze. Hardwood floors, stainless steel appliances, walls painted warm, calm colors. "The life," she said, "I could never afford." "You," she stammered, "you bought this?" I looked her in the eyes, steady. "Yes, with the money you didn't notice." Dad's lips pressed tight. He scanned the place like he was trying to find a crack in the walls. Some flaw to cut me down with, but there wasn't one. I poured myself a glass of water. Slow, deliberate. "You told me to grow up," I said. "So I did, and I don't need you anymore. But you," I paused, let the silence drag. "You needed me all along." That was the moment they broke. Mom's scream wasn't rage, it was fear. The scream of someone realizing their anchor was gone, their safety net cut, their control dissolved. Dad didn't yell. He just sat down, shoulders caving like the house of cards he built finally collapsed. I didn't scream. I didn't gloat. I just stood there calm, watching the empire they built on my back crumble. And that's the truth. The night they laughed at me, I said nothing. But silence isn't weakness. Silence is planning. Now they